Hey everyone, this is John Hale. I wanted to get some content on my Twitter page, my new one. I believe it's called Home Cooked College Football, and I wanted to go ahead. Not really going in depth on anything. I just kind of wanted to do these fun tier lists. It's just fun, and I think it was all be subjective. And, you can disagree with me, you can agree with me. It's just like anything else, just my opinions. And like I said, I am not right by any means. Personally, I think I'm right, but I mean, you may think I'm totally bogus. I mean, it's all subjective. And I didn't want to do nothing during the off season, so I thought I'd do some fun things every once in a while. And these tier things felt like a good idea. And this won't happen all the time. It'll just happen every once in a while. But once again, I didn't want to do nothing before April. And first week of April, we'll get back into full swing and we'll start previewing. We'll start previewing 2020, going through all the FBS programs and what their outlook is for next season. And I don't know about you, but I already miss college football. So what I think I'll do for the next few times is I'll do my tier lists of stadiums. Like, obviously I've never been to every stadium ever, but based on what I've seen, based on my own personal experiences, I have a bar set. I think I have a pretty good bar to measure up. So what I'll do is I'll cover the SEC and their stadiums, and they'll go from worst stadium to just okay, to decent, to almost the best, and then finally to the best SEC stadiums. Once again, this is all subjective. Don't take this too seriously. I'm barely taking this seriously. But I got all the stadiums as you see on the bottom of your screen. I got them all there, and they're all in alphabetical order, so we'll go from alphabetical order, starting with Bryant-Denny Stadium, home of the University of Alabama Crimson Tide. You know what, man? It's starting off with a bang with these stadiums. Bryant-Denny is most definitely one of the most intimidating places to play. Nick Saban hardly ever loses there, and if he does, it's always national coverage. Like, oh, look at that, Alabama lost at home. So it's really, really tough to beat them there. It's filled to the brim every single Saturday with some of the most passionate fans in college football, so it's pretty hard not to put Bryant-Denny right at the top. Right there. So we're already starting off on a high note. Next, we got Jordan-Hare Stadium, home of the Auburn Tigers. And I think Jordan-Hare is an awesome stadium. I think it's filled with fans that are quite equitable to Alabama's fans. But something about it just kind of puts it below Bryant-Denny for me. Maybe it's the prestige, maybe it's the fans, maybe it's the team itself, but I still think it's an awesome stadium, but it's got to be just below. It's almost one of the best. Awesome stadium still, but not quite in the upper tier. Next we have Razorback Stadium, home of the Arkansas Razorbacks. And this is where we start going towards the bottom here. Trust me, it will not be alone. It will definitely not be alone in this ranking. But Arkansas, and you could probably equate this to the quality of the team recently, but it's not full. All the fans that go there are pretty apathetic. Losing to whenever your biggest win of the year is North Texas some years, and then the rest of the games you don't win, it's tough. I think Sam Pittman's going to do something, if anything. It's pretty hard not to be as bad as Arkansas has been, but as it is right now, Razorback Stadium right there at the bottom. Next, we got the home of the Florida Gators, Ben Hill Griffin Stadium in Gainesville. And this one is going to be pretty near the top. Ben Griffey Hill, it's the swamp, man. It's the swamp. It is one of the most infamous places to play football. When Tim Tebow played, I don't think he I think he only lost at home like once, and that was that infamous game to Ole Miss. And like I said, you don't really lose, you don't really win in the Swamp. In recent years, that's kind of been it's kind of not been true. But I think with Dan Mullen's really putting the Swamp right where it needs to be. Maybe it'll find its way into the top tier, but for right now, it's almost the best. It's in top tier form, but it just maybe Dan Mullen needs a breakout season again to kind of put it up into the top. Next, we have Sanford Stadium, home of the Georgia Bulldogs, and I think that Sanford has kind of gotten not overrated, but definitely just a little. It's nothing about Sanford actually just pops. You know what I'm talking about? Like it's between the hedges. The hedges, great. And it's got some awesome fans there. Yeah, a lot of other SEC fans, a lot of other places have SEC fans too. I mean, it's not, I don't know. I may be totally wrong in this. Remember, this is all subjective, but it's not quite there for me. I think Sanford's just kind of decent. So Sanford Stadium, home of the Georgia Bulldogs, that's where they check in. Next, we got home of the Kentucky Wildcats, Kroger Field in Lexington, Kentucky. And, I mean, Kentucky's really kind of climbed the ladder recently, and, I mean, they're decent. I mean, I believe they went 8-5 last year. They went 10-3. I mean, they went 8-5 this year. They went 10-3 last year. And I think that Kentucky is not... just based on what it is, it's hard to put it higher than decent, but I don't think it's necessarily the worst, but you got to put it in the okay. That's probably where it's supposed to be. Okay, Death Valley, Tiger Stadium, home of the defending national champions, the LSU Tigers. Is there any debate where Tiger Stadium is supposed to be? Like, honestly, Tiger Stadium is one of the best SEC stadiums. In fact, it's one of the best stadiums in the country. Tiger Stadium, you don't win there if you play there at night. If you are playing the Tigers after 5:30 in the evening, you're done. LSU is not going to let you win there, and I don't know. They must put something in the water to make them play so much harder during night games. It's tough to play there, and it's nearly impossible to win. So Death Valley, and it is the real Death Valley. If Clemson plays LSU in the title game again and Clemson wins, then they can take it back. But for right now, it's the real Death Valley, and it's one of the best. Vaught-Hemingway Stadium, home of the Mississippi Rebels, the Ole Miss Rebels. This is hard because the next few could honestly go in several places for me. But for Vaught-Hemingway, I think they're just okay. I think Lane Kiffin has the ability to kind of to galvanize the fans and move them up a little bit, but not right now. I think Vaught-Hemingway is kind of stuck right there in the okay section. Their next door neighbors, Davis Wade Stadium, home of Mississippi State and head coach Mike Leach. Once again, kind of the same. I'm thinking that Stark Vegas, as they like to call it, is just a little bit more intriguing than Vaught-Hemingway. I think the Cowbells really do something for it. I mean, I'll tell you, Baby Shark is not as intimidating as the Cowbells. I mean, I've heard bad things about the fan base, and I've heard good things about the fan base. But in terms of the stadium and what it does, it's definitely not the best or near the best, but it's definitely decent. So we'll put Davis Wade in the decent category. Check it out, the two Bulldogs facing off in the decent category. Next, we have home of the Missouri Tigers, Fraught Field, and this is just meh. Tiger Field has always been meh. They've only really had a few amazing games. They beat Johnny Manziel, Texas A&M in 2013, and that was their ticket into the SEC championship game, where they thoroughly got smashed by the Auburn Tigers. That was the biggest game that they've had since then, other than their just absolute pounding by Alabama just a year later. Since then, Missouri hasn't really had a lot of big games to sell at their stadium, and I just think that speaks to the program itself. So Missouri, definitely not the worst, but it's definitely just okay. And now we have South Carolina, Williams-Brice Stadium. Sandstorm, man, it does something else, but other than just that opening, once again, kind of just the team's ability on it. Sanford, I mean, there's just not enough juice in that stadium. There's not enough pop. I think that it's okay to a point, but in fact, I'll put it you got to put it in okay. You just got to put it there. I think that I mean, maybe if Muschamp can do something to maybe if they go on a run, maybe go 8-4 this year, then maybe, but I'm not holding my breath for that because I'm one of the biggest Muschamp critics. I don't like him. I don't like his play calling, and I don't like his philosophy. I think he's a player's coach, but the bad kind, the kind that like he can't make the players play hard for him. So I'm gonna have to go ahead and put him just okay. They're on the teetering of worse though. And then there is Neyland Stadium. This is one of the biggest in the country. Neyland Stadium, home of the Tennessee Volunteers, and due to their performance in the later half of the season, they definitely got a little bit more pop in their fans. And so you got to put Neyland Stadium with the history that it has and the Volunteer Navy and with the just the passion that the fans in Tennessee have it. I think Rocky Top is right. It's in between decent and the almost best. I'm gonna put in decent right now, but it's pretty close to being one of the almost the best. And then there's my team, Kyle Field, home of the Texas A&M Aggies, and I've spent a lot of time in Kyle Field, and it's hard to not be biased, but I'm gonna be as objective as possible to a degree, okay? And I've tried to be objective with this whole thing. Kyle Field is not one of the best in the SEC. I'll say it. It's as an A&M fan, being objective, it is not one of the best in the SEC. It is definitely almost the best, and that's where it's going to be. It's kind of in that same spot as the Swamp and Jordan Hare. More or less the Swamp. It's got the history, you know. It's got like, oh, there's this intimidation factor about Kyle Field, but it's not quite there yet like it used to be. And I think a lot of that is, honestly, as someone who's had experience in it, the fans are pretty fickle. They show out in forced start, and then if it gets to a point where they just can't see a way out of it, they leave. Now there's a lot of diehard Aggies that are going to stay the entire time. Most of them are students, but this fan base, as I've seen recently, it hasn't earned it for the stadium, and so I'm going to have to. I mean, that 7 overtime thriller against LSU is something, but then you realize that half the stadium left after Kellen's almost interception that was called back and would end up being one of the deciding calls in that classic game. So Kyle Field, not the best, but definitely in the upper tiers. And then finally, home of the Vanderbilt Commodores, Vanderbilt Stadium. We started out this tier list with one of the best SEC stadiums in Bryant-Denny. Vanderbilt, man, it's all the way at the bottom. In fact, I'll even go so far as to say that it is the worst. They don't sell it out. It's for a team that is never impressive, that will probably not be impressive, and it's the smallest school with the smallest fan base. All of those add up. Vanderbilt does not have an intimidating atmosphere. It will not have an intimidating atmosphere, at least for the foreseeable future, and they are not a stadium to be feared. People go in there and they win on a pretty consistent basis. So there's my tier list. Once again, it's pretty subjective. I'm trying to be objective, but subjective is still what it is. So I'll go over it really quick. Vanderbilt and Arkansas have the worst stadiums in the SEC. Kentucky, Ole Miss, Missouri, and South Carolina have okay stadiums. Decent stadiums belong to the Georgia Bulldogs, the Mississippi State Bulldogs, and the Tennessee Volunteers. Right below the best are Auburn Tigers, the Florida Gators, and the Texas A&M Aggies. And the best SEC stadiums belong to the Alabama Crimson Tide and the LSU Tigers. Once again, just let me know what you think. You can rant at me if you want, but go ahead and follow my page. Give me the follow, and I will see you guys next time. Thank you.